Hi Homeworthy, I'm Katherine and we're here in West London. Welcome into my home.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos.
I'm Katherine Ormerod and I'm a writer, and we're here in my home in West London. My route to this home was quite long-winded. We were basically kicked out of our last rental that we were living in as a family. The rent was hiked by over 65%, and you have that sinking feeling when the email comes in and you're like, oh my gosh, we're not going to be able to make this work. Okay, we've got to go and find another spot for ourselves. The kind of difficult part is my eldest kid is now in school, so you have to keep obviously within some kind of catchment area to within close walking distance ideally to the school. So this was actually the 11th property that I put a rental offer on, and all of the others I was outbid. That lots of them were going to sealed bids, last and final offers for rentals, because that's kind of what the culture has been increasingly like here in the rental market here in London. And when we finally got the yes for this property, it was such a relief, it really was. And it wasn't perfect, it wasn't the ideal property, but that to me is always the opportunity. So I was really excited to see what I could do with this one. First up, when you walk into my home, you are in the hallway here. And this was a little bit of a labour of love. I replaced all of the wallpaper. This is my first actual proper wallpaper job I've ever done, and I've been told that it's quite ambitious to do one up the stairs, but it was actually quite manageable because you're obviously going from the skirting board to the dado. So it wasn't too bad. I would absolutely suggest someone does it. The paper here is the 2.55 Chanel handbag of wallpaper. It is Willow Boughs by William Morris, and one of the reasons that I chose it is actually William Morris was very active in the area. He set up the Hammersmith Socialist Charter just down the road, and there's a home in walking distance from me, Emery Walker House, which has been kept entirely in situ, and it's top to bottom William Morris wallpaper, and they actually have willow boughs in their entryway as well. And as this home was built at the same time, it felt like a really nice way of bringing some local heritage into the space. And then this colour, it's called Thames Reed. It's also by Morris & Co. It's really nice. It's a lovely, lovely matte. I would say that it's not entirely kid friendly, but I'm always there retouching here and there. And then the final thing I did here is I put this little coat hanger, and we've got a bench, and the kids can just kick all of their shoes into the buckets. If I lived on my own, it would probably be slightly more elevated, but I live with two boys, so that's that. That's everything there. So let's move on into my sitting room. So this is my sitting room. I started off by totally repainting it. Before it was kind of like a magnolia colour. I think you get that in a lot of rentals. And I just wanted something a little more soothing. Here there were lots and lots of very old-fashioned shelving in brackets with metal brackets with the shelving. So I took those down. I popped these floating ones up. Some annoying things as a renter. So I got here. The curtains were that much too short, but I added this really cute ticking border, and I really like the way it looks. I kind of feel that it brings the green into the rest of the room. And then really this room was about artwork. This piece here is by an artist called Ali Bassett, and my eldest son, actually, his first name is Hector. We call him Gray, but his first name is Hector. So when I bought it, I was like, this is going to be an amazing family heirloom. And this piece, which I love, by a Brazilian artist called Aileen Gaiad, is actually a rental. So I don't know if you've heard about this, but basically you pay a certain amount per month and then every 10 weeks it gets changed. So I'm renting this piece here. Quite tricky because it looks absolutely perfect. So I obviously now really want it. Maybe that's how they do it, you know, try before you buy type thing. And then really, like with all the rooms, this is a space for my collections. I love things, objets, and I pick them up everywhere. So I spend my weekends thrifting, going to antiques markets. We have lots and lots of charity shops on the high road close to here, and I go like most days. Okay, so this piece was sourced by a journalist friend of mine from about 15 years ago, and she now lives out in the Cotswolds and has this amazing service where she goes and rummages around all these brocantes in France and you know, in Europe, and she comes back with the most amazing bits and bobs, and then she sells them on Instagram. You know, it goes up and people bid, and I got this one. I absolutely love it. It's the perfect colour, and it's such a good example of, you know, you could go into West Elm and get some kind of approximation of this, and then you and 6,000 other people would have that on your shelf. Only I've got this one. That's why I love it. So that's generally my vibe. So when it comes to objects, I look everywhere. And this, I mean, it's amazing. It's a little matchbox. It was put together by one of my friends, Alexandra Stedman, and she worked with an artist who, Frances Costello. I have another piece of her work in the home. I know it's obviously meant to be functional and practical, but I use it as like a little objet on my shelves because I just love it. I love the colour, I love the little pattern, and I, you know, one day maybe I'll frame it in like a small little frame, but for now it just sits there. This fireplace, when we arrived, underneath these tiles are like smashed tiles. And like day 2, I found my, like, at the time 18-month-old child with pieces of tile in his mouth. I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? You know, child-proofing to the nth degree. And I did try and remove them myself, but it didn't go so well. So instead, I've just laid these beautiful tiles on top. I mean, it isn't my best hack, I will be honest about it, but at least my kids can't cause some kind of like poison danger to themselves, and I do like the way it looks. And you know, in the winter I fill it with candles. It actually is a working fireplace, but these days it's somewhat frowned upon to use them, so we're not using it, but I fill it with candles, and you know, it creates such a warm and gorgeous glow. I love it, it's lovely. So this is like one of those you must not do that things, and I've done it. Layering rugs on top of carpet. So we have a particular type of carpet in the UK in rentals, and this one's actually okay because it's like a beige colour, but normally they're this kind of like grey silver. And the reason we have it isn't aesthetic, it's like one of the best ways to combat moths. So it's firstly cheap, and secondly, it really helps landlords stop, you know, vermin or whatever, pests in the house. So you get a lot of carpets in rentals in the UK, like sometimes carpeted bathrooms, you know, it is everywhere. It's much easier for landlords to keep carpets going than wooden floorboards, for example, which require a lot more effort. But that's a big difference between London and Paris. In Paris, nowhere is carpeted. It's all like original wood floors, and you put your rug down and it looks so chic. Here we're like, oh my God, we've got the silver carpet to deal with. But anyway, that's why I always do large scale rugs. I don't really care what anyone says if it's like wrong for, you know, interior rules or something. I think it looks good. This rug is honestly about 8 years old, but I'm not going to recommend it because for about 4 of them, it created so many dust bunnies in the corner. This is a real one, you know, it's like made of wool. I've ended up buying a totally synthetic one for the bedroom, which is, you know, similar look, and I much prefer it. I would always recommend the synthetic one, which, you know, it doesn't feel quite right, but it doesn't completely send you into working for a Hoover life, picking up dust bunnies from every single corner. I really love this table. I think it's so beautiful. It's by one of the most prominent designers called Tom Dixon. And I really, really love it. I love a round table in general. Again, because if you have loads of people in this room, which I often do, if it's me, it's like girlfriends. If it's my partner, it's like a wee golf session. But it means that everyone can have a pizza in the middle and you all just sit on cushions around. You know, these spaces, it's not necessarily about everything being formal or perfect. And as much as I love a tablescape, and I mean, I really love a tablescape, I love the idea that you have this like more relaxed space where everyone just comes together. And if it's in front of the TV to watch a game, that's fine too. Let's go through the breakfast room. So these are original doors to the house, but no glass. Obviously somewhere down the line the glass is shattered and it hasn't been replaced. And it's one of the things that I dream of. I think this is one of the things, right? You're a renter. You look at a space and you think, oh my God, what would I do? And part of it is finding that acceptance that there are some things which probably you should not do. And I think replacing and restoring these doors unfortunately falls under that remit. But anyway, come on in. Really struggled with this room. I've kind of had a couple of iterations already, but I feel like we're just about here. This is a really, really beautiful 1950s reclaimed French table with like matching chairs that have the, you know, very similar design here. What I love about vintage for a rental and vintage when you've got kids is that it's already pre-worn in. You know, it isn't pristine. If one of my kids like knocks it or takes a chip out of it, like it's just adding to the history and charm of it. It's survived so much. It's 70 years old and now here it is in, you know, a West London family home. So, you know, it's tough when you've got furniture and you're going to be putting it into the back of a van and it might be moving here and it might be going to a storage facility or whatever. I always feel with vintage like you don't have much anxiety about that because, you know, anything that happens to it is really just part of the story. So that's the table and chairs. Here, this is an IKEA number and I have painted the scallop onto it. I always think with things like this, if it's not in constant use, you don't have to worry too much about scrapes. This is actually just a tester pot of emulsion. Like it's not even fancy special paint. But yeah, I think it really adds something to the room and then it reflects. I don't know if you can see here, but I've got these scallop shelves. So I loved this hatchway when I first saw the home. It was like the number one thing I loved. And I could immediately see what I was going to do with it. And it's split into two colours. So this side is the green and the other side is the blue. I added, this is like one of my favourite things that I do is adding these trims. So upstairs in my kids' room, there are zigzags. Here we've got scallops, you know, this wavy one. I've got actual proper scallops as well. And it just adds that, you know, personal touch to something which is quite functional. And I am, again, a big collector of ceramics. Some of them I've bought, some of them I've made myself. These are some of my bowls. So I like throwing, doing my own ceramics. So that's really great. What else have I made in here? Nothing else I've made, but this is an IKEA cabinet and it is definitely 10 years old now and it has come everywhere with me. And honestly, lots of times I've thought maybe I should upgrade my cocktail cabinet, but there is no cabinet in this world that would be able to take the amount of glassware and booze that this one does. It's like the TARDIS, honestly. It's got about 50 bottles in it, probably 150 glasses or something, and it continues to do its job. I do have like anxious nightmares sometimes though that maybe the first shelf will go and it will all just end up broken. But you know, 10 years, it's not too bad. So yeah, that's a favourite. And then this piece here is a gorgeous piece by Alexandria Coe. My boyfriend actually bought it, fiance. Oh, I mean, what do I call him? We're getting married at some point. But he bought this for me for my birthday during lockdown. And I was really heavily pregnant. And I just love it. I particularly love the colour. It's quite unusual for Alexandria Co's. Most of hers are in blues or different colours, but this green, I feel like it's the green of my palette. It's really funny, you know, as if I have my own personal palette, but there are colours that just speak to me, and I feel like I will reproduce them in every home that I live in, and that is my green. So this green on the walls is exactly the same in the entryway, and I love that conceptually, that idea that you walk through a home and even though the rooms are different, there's some kind of red thread that pulls it together. So in the room that we're about to go into, my kitchen, I'm just telling you that, but in that room there's quite a lot of terracotta, so I brought the terracotta in here. But this green is reflected in that room. So as you walk through, there are shades that you're picking up that kind of tell a story, even though the rooms themselves have totally different palettes and different feels. These are very cheap woven storage baskets, and inside you'll find all sorts of kids' rubbish. I mean, storage when you have children is the number one thing. Lots and lots of people ask me how my house is so tidy. And there's only one answer. It's all stashed in boxes and hidden. I mean, it all still exists, obviously, but this is where we keep like all the colouring things. And then they have chests in their own room for toys and so on and so forth. And it's that idea that they go to bed, you scoop it all up like this, throw it in, close it. Never existed. You know, adult time now. All right, so let's do it. Let's go to the kitchen. This is one of my favourites. Now, it's sometimes a little dark, so we might have to turn a light on. Welcome to my kitchen. It obviously suffers from a limited light supply. It's bright for about 45 minutes a day. We just have this little one window. So I was like, what are we going to do? We've got to lean into that, haven't we? So I decided that I was going to make these cabinets dark and moody. The before and the after of this room are quite profound, let's say. So underneath all of this is a very old IKEA, I think, maybe IKEA kitchen. But it was laminate, it was veneered, it was really, really tired. And then when you open it, the carcass is an entirely other, even older kitchen. So to say it was like on its last legs is probably, you know, a good estimation. And they were completely flat. And what I like generally, everywhere I am, is to have texture. The way I started was cutting all of these strips and firstly creating like a shaker style to each of them, and they're all just glued on with laminate glue. And then on top of it I use Rust-Oleum, I think it's called Evening Blue or Midnight Blue, but it's a particular kitchen cabinet paint, and you don't need to prime, you don't need to do anything special. It's completely made to just go straight on to laminate, and it has done so well. This is just 2 coats. It hasn't chipped, nothing bad has happened to it. I then added all of the hardware by a really lovely independent British brand called Plank. And yeah, I mean, it took me some time, I am not going to lie. I then built in the IKEA island here. So that's the same thing. I just slightly sanded it down because it had quite a shine to it, but then used the kitchen cabinet paint again, and it did really well. This is a well-known IKEA little stool. The rug is from Ruggable, so washable as well, which is wonderful and required. And then obviously the biggest story in this kitchen is vinyl. So I have wrapped in vinyl the work surfaces, I've wrapped the white goods, I've wrapped the fridge, and then these are tile stickers. So they've got this kind of like Portuguesey feeling, and I really love it. I love this room so much. I then finally, at the other end of the room, I've added a radiator cover, which is something you'll see in lots of the rooms that I have in this home. They're the same radiator cover. I would have made these, but honestly, I couldn't have made them as cheap as I could buy them. And then they're paint your own. And it's another really great way of bringing colour into a rental, because obviously that is actually quite a large scale piece in the room. but you can pull it away immediately. It's entirely temporary. But yeah, it's another great way. If you're not going to paint furniture, you can paint things like that to bring in colour. And then, of course, with everything, it's then layering in for me some textiles. So I made these cute little gingham curtains and then these matching gingham ruffled cushions. These sweet little things. I love that. I actually probably would have done like skirts all along here, but the white goods stick out too much, so I couldn't. What else have I done? Oh, I hung these shelves. Now these shelves, again, they're a really nice selection of, you know, lots of my bits and bobs. These are all charity shop finds. I love them. It's so nice to put collections like that together to create an additional layer to your palette. And then these are really fun artwork. So again, when people ask me how to buy art, one of my personal ways of doing it is grouping pieces. So this is my bathers selection. My son calls it the bums selection because there are a few bums in there. Yeah, there's a piece by the artist I mentioned before, Francis Costello, a couple of pieces of Hockney. This is a Jürgen Teller photograph of Sofia Coppola, and then there's a Grey Marlin piece here. And whenever I come in here, I'm always like, oh, it feels like a holiday or something. And then the final really cool thing that I did here is when we arrived, this beam was like painted like pub black brown. And instead of, I absolutely hated it, but instead of removing all the colour, what I actually did is I painted it like a French cream colour, and then I used a polish on top to bring out the grain. So now what you get as an effect is a completely lighter wood, but actually it's just being painted white with some furniture polish on. Probably if you like rubbed your hand too vigorously across it, you might end up with a bit of a brown palm, but you know, we don't do that. It's out of my reach, fortunately. So for anyone that was interested in what those other glass-free doors look like, this is what it should look like. This is really, you know, typical of all of the homes in this kind of area. So they all have these original doors with these original glass. Some of them are blue and red, but we've got the green and red in this house. So this piece of art, this is like a classic millennial on the internet story. One of my girlfriends went to an Airbnb in Portugal and took a picture of herself and a child in front of a piece of art. And I was like, I need that piece of art. So I hunted it down and I found it in a gallery in Stockholm and I got it delivered to me. And it means a big love is enough. A grand love is enough. And I think, do you know what? Probably love is all we need. I remember like my nan having plates on the wall and thinking that it was super twee. Round circle, obviously. Now here we are, I'm doing the same thing. So these two plates are by a ceramicist called Harley Brown. She does these amazing squiggle cups and jugs that I really love. And I love the way they look, they're really fun. And this is a piece by the Conran store, which I just felt colour-wise was so perfect for the space. But these are the kinds of things that I would change up quite a lot. They've got a really cool plate sticker on the back. I don't know if you've ever heard of these, but you make them gummy just with some water and you put them on the back, leave them overnight, and they completely stick to the back of the plate. And then you just immerse them in warm water and then it comes off. So it means 100% you're not going to ruin your plate or smash your plate or anything like that. That one's got that on. These ones have got like claw ones. It's amazing how many different ways there are to hang a plate on your wall. So the pièce de résistance in this room, we started off when we first moved here with a very strange bathroom off the side of our kitchen. Now, this is because the owner, our landlord, is an elderly gentleman, and when his mobility became compromised, he had a downstairs wet room put on, so obviously he wouldn't have to go up the stairs. But obviously, it's quite a strange place to have a bathroom right here. So we weren't really sure what to do with like a shower, and probably for about a year, it was just used as like a store of rubbish, boxes, scooters, my bike maybe sometimes. And then one day I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, I've got young kids. It would be so useful to have a downstairs bathroom. So I thought, what am I going to do? And my plan was that I was going to bring the same sticker tile and put it in there. What I hadn't really factored in was that there are 420 tiles. So wait a second, you're going to see what it looks like. Ta-da! I like to think of this as my Lisbon bathroom. Each and every single one of these is a sticker. It took me a really, really long time to do it. And of course it's quite an unusual shape, so each of the tile stickers has been cut to size as well. I feel like this has been like a little love letter to myself, this room, because it was actually quite expensive to buy this many stickers. But I love it, and it has proven so invaluable. There's a tiny little sink here which my kids can use to wash their hands. They don't have to run upstairs with their muddy shoes. They can, it's just very practical and very useful. And I love the fact that there was already this terracotta shade in here on both the floor and in the border there. So yeah, it kind of linked so well into the kitchen. And then I made this quite silly little cafe curtain here. It's out of fabric, and actually I made a couple of them. They're like, so I can twist it up per season. But yeah, I just think it again adds that kind of charm, that quaintness to what could have otherwise been quite a municipal space. Okay, next up we're going to the dining room. Come with me. So this is our, I guess, more formal dining room, which kind of seems like we've got two dining rooms, but actually I use it for entertaining and it is my office. This is where I work. I take all my calls here. I like my Zoom background. And it's a really lovely, calm place to be. You can see out to the road. But again, in the evening, you kind of pull the curtains, you put the record player on, and it turns into a perfect little evening spot. Now we can fit 8 people around the table, and sometimes we pull up a couple of stools and shove in another 2, and there are 10 of us. And it's such a gorgeous, gorgeous space. I love being in here. Again, this was painted magnolia, so I repainted the whole thing. And then the majority of these pictures are all held up with command strips. I'm sure you guys have heard of command strips, but they're basically like sticky Velcro. And yeah, aside from that one, which is actually glass and really heavy, and I have made a small hole, which I will be refilling and doing all of my duty around that. These are all stuck with stickers, basically. What can I tell you? So in here, this piece of furniture we received third hand. It was once in the Thomas Pink store in Mayfair. It went to someone else. It is now in our home. These lampshades are so gorgeous. They are made in a collaboration with my friend Eleanor, and her Instagram handle is A Considered Space, and it was made in collaboration with a maker called Munro Kerr. And these wavy colours, I absolutely love them. And what I did was then colour matched some paint to paint the base. These bases are from Pookie, and they're DIY paint yourself ones, but then obviously you can get the exact perfect match. So these chairs I collected over the space of about 2.5 years. So they're classic Eames chairs, nothing to write home about. I love that they're black on black with the black maple legs. But actually what's special is I couldn't afford them. So each of them was bought one by one in different circumstances, so they don't match. There are a couple that are Herman Millers, so they came from the States because that's who has the franchise in America. The others are Vitra. A couple are slightly lower, so I always avoid those at dinner parties. I'm short enough as it is. And I got a couple from Auction House in Darlington in the north of England. The 2 end ones I got on an end of season sale at the Comran store. This one is like a 1970s, and it actually isn't as black as I thought it was when it arrived. I was like, oh no, but actually what I love about this story is that it's not perfect. There is no other family in the world with this configuration of 8 chairs. It tells the story of our family. It tells the story of someone, i.e. me, who was not going to give up. Even though she couldn't afford what she wanted, she made it happen. And I just love the idea that there can be beauty beyond, I want these 8 chairs, I'm going to go and buy them on the internet and they all arrive at once. Instead, it's a whole story of us making it as, a young couple in London. And yeah, I love them. I really do. This is the only thing that I paid someone to help me with because it was so high up and I just wasn't confident in doing the electrics with this piece. It is an iconic piece, again, by the designer Tom Dixon. It's called the Melt Lamp, and I got it in this bronzy colour. And when you see it on, it's like a volcano. It's got flames and you're sat there at a dinner party at the table and it's got this amazing, it creates such amazing ambience. So I absolutely adore that. And then this table is a Soho home piece, but I got it from eBay for 40% of its cost, RRP, and it's still in store now. That's a winner. I feel pretty good about that. That was a really good purchase. Then what you'll see kind of dominating this room are these 2 really large scale tapestries. So when you rent, large scale artworks are so tricky, obviously, because, it's heavy and expensive and all of those things. So what I did was I made 2 really large scale frames, which cost me like £20 to make. And then I stretched blankets across them. So this one's from Slow Down Studio, and this one is a blanket by an artist called Lucy Tiffany. But most people would have them on the side of their sofa or something like that. But actually, when you stretch them and mount them like this, it's something like 180 by 2 meters, and they're so light, they're so easily transportable. You just obviously cover them, with something, another blanket, and then you can just put them in the back of a van and off you go. I've just noticed this. Story of my house, there's always a tool somewhere. But yeah, haven't quite tied it up well enough there, but we'll hide it again. Probably not ideal with young children again. Be moving that this evening. But yeah, I love these large scale tapestries, and I've actually made them for a couple of friends now. But yeah, that is a really great way to go as a renter. And then finally, I guess it's this little area. I don't know if you can see, but I haven't quite planted my geraniums yet. They're in the window box waiting. There's always a job to do. But anyway, I made this window seat cushion. I ordered the foam online, and then I got this really lovely boucle. And for whatever reason, I was like, this needs some kind of piping to pull in. So I added this terracotta piping into the story, and then I just made these really cute little cafe curtain style curtains out of some French linen. But again, this is a really lovely spot. Like if I'm sitting and I want to read, or I'm just taking a little moment, I'll sit up here, I'll light a candle, and it feels so gorgeous to have the light right there. Yeah, it's one of my favorite spots. So for all the viewers across the world here, the rental situation in the UK is quite unusual. We are a home-owning country, and especially when you have your family, it's very much seen as a badge of adulthood. But obviously, the tectonic plates of social and financial situations for all of us in our generation have been shifting at breakneck speed. And, so many of us, so many of my generational cohort no longer are able to buy a home. There's a wild statistic that it's something like 350% more 35 to 45-year-olds are now in rental accommodation than they were in 1993. So you can see how quickly the situation has changed. And one of the strange quirks of the culture here is that it's very much seen that you wouldn't touch a rental, like you wouldn't do anything to it. You move in and it is your landlord's responsibility to do everything. And I guess the relationship is quite adversarial between landlords and tenants in general. It's always someone trying to get something up on, there's a lot of distrust, let's just say. And I, however, was born in Munich in Germany, and that is a very, very different rental culture. And my dad lived in a rental property for over 25 years, and he put parquet flooring in and his own kitchen, and he had an amazing relationship with his landlady. So I really wanted to try and bring a little bit of that attitude to our situation here. So when I look for rentals, and when I was recently looking for rentals for this property, I put together a whole proposal for prospective landlords of what I would like to do for their properties. So what I look for in rental properties is not the ones that are perfect and have just been done up and are pristine and polished and top of the market. I look at the ones that have been overlooked by everybody else, basically, because I see that as an opportunity to create this mutually beneficial situation for the landlord, who will get the opportunity to have their house refreshed, and for me to put a bit more of a personal stamp on it. Now, I started showing everyone on my social media what I was doing, and the messages were wild. Like, people said that I was a mug, that I was lining my landlord's pockets, I'm already paying his mortgage, why am I making the value of his property go up? Like, there's a lot of negativity, I feel, to making these kind of changes. But ultimately, my retort is always the same. Like, my life is now. Like, I am not waiting to live until I can afford a deposit. Like, my eldest child is 6. This is his childhood bedroom, you know. It's not going to be in 10 or 15 years' time if that's how long it takes for me to get on the property market. So I'm going to make this the very best I possibly can. I'm not saying it's perfect or it's the ideal scenario, but I'm going to make the lemonade. So in order to do that, obviously, you don't want to be spending a lot of money on labour when it isn't your property. You have got to balance out the two competing issues, that it's an investment that maybe in 3 years' time will no longer be reaping you any dividends, but equally, those 3 years is a good section of your life. So in order to kind of square that circle, I decided that I was going to do all the work, like literally all the work myself. So I've painted every single room in this house. I've done light plumbing, wallpapering, you know, made curtains for every single window. I've made them myself. I've decorated everything. Everything you see in this house, I've either handmade or hacked. There's a lot of a mixture of different things, I would say. And I guess a lot of that comes from my background in fashion. I've been a fashion journalist, you know, for years and years back. I still work freelance as a fashion journalist. And I was on magazines for nearly 10 years. And that really instilled in me this understanding of the high-low approach. Welcome in. This is our guest room. This was the room that I fought so hard to find a property with a space, and it's wild. Like, we were looking at 2 to 3 bedroom flats that cost the same as this, but we slightly shifted the location and got this extra space. But this for me is so fundamental. Both my parents live abroad. My mum's in France and my dad's in Germany, and my brother lives out of town, and my partner, his mother, is also a long way away over in Norfolk. So if we want to have the family together, it's so nice to be able to have this space. This is my favourite asset of this property, that we have this extra bedroom. So what did I do? We've got another radiator cover here in the same blue that we've got downstairs with those wavy lampshades. So again, you see where I'm coming from. It's the mimicking of the colours. Now this is a IKEA Stockholm mirror. I'm sure you've seen many of them around. It was originally in the walnut colour and then I made it stripy, so that's super cute. This is an IKEA Pax. You may have heard of it. But I jigsawed out the sides and then stapled behind with all of this rattan to create something with a little bit more texture. This room has got a lot of texture to it. There's lots of baskets and dried flowers, and that's kind of like the feeling that I wanted to evoke. Then this bed, it's a high street bed. I think it cost maybe £300, but I then reupholstered it. So I reupholstered the headboards and the sides in this ticking fabric. Now ticking is, as you guys probably know, generally used for mattresses. It's a cheap fabric, but it's super, super durable and great for upholstery. And I'm a big fan of, stripes anyway. So what I ended up then doing is making curtains to match. So we've got the ticking curtains, and I think that again it was about £15 a metre. It was really, really affordable. These are some IKEA shelves, Mosslander, I believe its name is. And then again, it's the arrangement of special bits. These two pieces are by one of my favourite artists, Lucy Mahone, and this is by Wilmian Bardwell. And I love her work too. What else have we got? Oh, this gorgeous piece by Letitia. My main passion in life is pasta. I mean, it's not a lie. I love making these little padded hangers for people. So when you have guests to stay, they've got a little place to hang their things. We have this little hanger here. So even if you're overnight and you've got a lovely dress to wear for a night out, you've got your padded hanger, put it there. It's all those little things. It's like, you know, the water glass and jug and all of the little special things that make it feel like a home from home, an empty... I try and keep it empty, an empty chest here so people can put their stuff in. What else? These are another 3 lovely pieces of artwork. This piece is by my friend James, who is the godfather to my eldest son, James Parkinson. This is another piece by Lucy Mahone, and this is a poster by a lady called Carolina. I can't remember her surname, but yeah, that's the great thing about art. You can frame anything, you know, and I love that you can have a selection of pieces, some of which are higher value and some are literally just a postcard. But what I particularly love about this room is I haven't painted it. As you can see, it's optic white. And it was the only room in the house that wasn't magnolia when we got here. So I was like, I'm not going to repaint a well-painted room. And I do think there's something when you come to stay somewhere about it looking very bright and clean. So that's why I wanted to do that. I generally keep white bed linen on the bed as well, and it gives it that kind of hotel-y feel. The other thing I love about this room is that it's mostly high street, low-end stores. So there's a lot of IKEA. The bed is Any Day by John Lewis. The side little trays are by Habitat. The lamp bases, I think, were like £20 from Dunelm. I love sometimes putting a really tight budget on things. I mean, I don't love it. That's a lie. I just lied to you. I don't love it. I want to spend all the money on all the nice things all the time. But what I actually find is quite often when you have a budget constraint, the result can end up being better. And I think that's because it makes you more ingenious and innovative in the way that you use your cash. So, you know, that's the upholstery. I would never have thought that I could upholster a bed before this room, but apparently I can, and it looks great. It's held up for 3 years, so you know, this is done okay. It kind of pushes you to use skills and find new ways to do things. This is the space that we have probably the most family time in. We do a lot of playing and a lot of, you know, just making things, building things, crafts and bricks, and, you know, I've got 2 boys. It's a lot of construction vehicles. So yeah, I love this room. So obviously this is quite a bold colour choice for a rental, and I was really thrilled that my landlord signed it off. The one pro is that when I'm repainting it, if I have to repaint it and they decide they want me to, it's only like half of the wall to paint over. But yeah, you know, I love this room. Again, we've got another radiator cover in here that brings a lot of colour in. And above the cover, we've got these fun papier-mâché faces that I made with my kids. Mostly I made them, but they're really, really cute. Again, we've got some ticking curtains in this room. I made a bit of a mistake with these curtains. They're not quite long enough. It does really annoy me, but at some point I will deal with it. You know, that's the other thing I always say to people. Like, if you're going to be making things and building things, like, mistakes, they happen. They happen to professionals. You can't get too upset about it or be like, well, I did this one time and I made a hole in my wall or whatever. Like, mistakes happen. It's annoying that it's costly, but it is also the cost of gaining experience and learning a skill. And that you just have to take it on the head, have a little scream into a corner, and then go back and come up with a solution. So the solution for this will obviously be, well, I'm going to make another border, and another trim like I have downstairs, but I'll get to it at some point. So here again, I did built-in shelves. A couple of the trims that I've attached are slightly wonky, but what are you going to do? It stands up and it's safe. That's enough. I think when you've got kids, one of the best things you can possibly do is use storage vertically, because it then clears like a floor as a play space. So you can have lots of these kind of like chests and things around, but one of the best things you can do is like go up. So that's what I've done here. And then he's got these bunk beds, and these bunk beds, oh my God, he slept on the floor for 3 months nearly to persuade me to get them for him. He was like, I need a big boy bed, I need this bed, da la la la. And now he does his best to sleep in my bed, to sleep in the spare bed, all of that. But ultimately he has this space, and hopefully at some point his younger brother will join him in here and we'll think of another use for the smaller bedroom if we're still living here. But for now, this to me is like a vital piece of the story for us, because if we were to have to move into a 3-bedroom home, we would still be able to have the spare bedroom for guests to stay. So, I love this piece of furniture a lot. I also wanted to make it kind of feel like an art gallery here. So there are some really lovely pictures and paintings here. I always think with kids, as much as like the cutesy kind of like kid art is fun and all, there's also so much like actual art that is kid friendly. We spend a lot of time at galleries here. It's one of the things that we like to do together. So, bringing classics in, the Rothko that we've got here, all of these different pieces. And then this piece here is really special, and we've had this in a couple of our rental properties, and it's a screen print done by a collaborative effort between a father and son called Woodism, and Woody himself has actually signed it. And Woody's autistic, and he comes out with some of the most profound statements. This one says, I love you all the way to the end of counting, which is such a lovely statement. And then his dad creates these really nice graphic pieces, and some of the sales go towards autism recognition and research. So it's a really lovely piece, and I always love having that here. And then it's just, as with everything, these pieces that come from all over the world, these 2 little like baskets, animal baskets, they came from Oaxaca, I think. One of the boys' godfathers brought them back from a trip. There are, things that we picked up. It's a postcard that I picked up in Cape Town on a trip years and years ago. These, I believe these originate in Japan. We do a lot of these kind of like paper art things, and the best ones get to go up. And then probably my favourite thing to play with in here is this little mouse castle. I don't know if you guys have them in the States. It's by a brand called Meleg, and it's super cute. And I love how both my boys love it so much, even though I guess like doll's housey things are seen as quite feminine, I guess. But we love playing all different kind of role play with it, and I love the idea that they're getting some kind of like decor aesthetic education. And we talk about, look at the tiles in there and look at the stripes, and then we make things together to go in it, and it's such a cute little thing to have together. I guess the overall feeling and the general feeling that I want to put out there for all renters is like, perfection isn't everything. Better than what it was is still better than what it was. It's great. And I personally like imperfect aesthetic. I think it feels more homely, more gemütlich, as we would say in Germany, and welcoming. No one's going to be stressed about sitting on any of my chairs in this home. It's a very welcoming and convivial place to be, and I host and do a lot of entertaining here. I have people stay over a lot, sometimes for multiple weeks at a time, And okay, the wall quality is not good. Some of the new paintwork that I've done is peeling away. There are random wires around door frames, some strange electrical quirks, all of the things that you would expect in a rental, it's all here. But I hope by the way that I've decorated it, it makes it all feel holistic and not like, oh my gosh, that's so run down and miserable and sad. I kind of like bedded it into the aesthetic of the whole thing. Final room for us to go and have a look at. It's the main bedroom. It's where I lay my head at night. Welcome in. We are in an island hotel room. Something somewhat Caribbean about it. That was the intention anyway. I had an amazing trip with a girlfriend. We wanted to see each other. She lives in Los Angeles, I'm here in London, and we were like, where could we possibly meet? And it ended up being Barbados, and it was, you know, a trip of my life. It was wonderful, and I'd never been anywhere like it. And when I came home, I was like, that feeling that I had there is what I want to recreate here. So we've got the palm fabrics here. This is fabric by a British textile designer and interior designer called Penny Morrison, and I made these curtains to go in this space. I upholstered the headboard and made these bolster cushions out of some fabric from the cloth shop, which is on Portobello Road here. They have fabulous fabrics, which I work with a lot. The linen is by a company called Piglet in Bed, and I love changing the linen up. Like I have some white linens and pink scallops and all ginghams, and I love doing a print clash on a bed, as long as you keep it all in the same kind of green. I remember one time an art teacher told me that every colour of green goes with each other, just look at a tree. I'm like, I mean, he's not wrong, is he? So I brought that principle with me into this home. And then behind us we have good old staple. It's a Hemnes IKEA chest of drawers, and I've painted it in Farrow and Ball cardroom green. Again, it wasn't primed. It's done very well. I love this colour. It's the kind of colour that I would definitely paint on walls if I owned my home. So yeah, it's nice to be able to bring one of the shades that you would like into a house through furniture with paint. Then here I made this mirror. Well, I didn't make it from scratch. It's an IKEA mirror behind. And then I made the mitered corners and created the frame out of some wavy trim there. So that was another really great. This green, it's called Bancha. It's another Farrow and Ball colour. The walls are a colour called Phlox, Phlox, by a British company called House of Hackney. They've got an amazing paint collection. It's new. I was really impressed with it. Then we have got another radiator cover here, and then this 3x4 selection of art prints. This was from a project I work with a brand. They have amazing, it's called Wall of Art. They have an insane selection of pieces. I think I probably trawled through something like 18,000 artworks and came up with this combination. I really love them. All of them speak to me. I think this one's my favourite. It's called Fleur Fleur. But I love how they feel in combination, and I love the idea of, you know, creating one statement through multiple pieces of art. Then behind us we have got this piece, this rattan piece, which really speaks to that kind of Caribbean feel. This is a vintage piece that I got from Vinteria. I love that. These lamps, I love these lamps, these squiggle lamps by a maker here called Bias Editions, which I really love. Gorgeous. Some more rattan around the mirror. This is a piece, I always say this is my pandemic bouquet because it's July 2020. I remember buying it and just like desperately wanting to be cheered up. But in the end, it's kind of, I guess, like grounded the palette in here, and I've colour matched the exact blue to paint this metal lamp here. So you've got the exact colour there, again, to bring that in. And then I guess my final thing in this room is this piece. It's by Hester Finch, and this is probably my favourite artwork in the whole house. I think it's super selfish that I have it in here because obviously, unless you're doing a room tour like this, people don't really come into your bedroom unless they're like ultra nosy. So it's something that mostly just my partner and I see, but that feels like it almost makes it even more special. I look at it every day. I love the way that it works with the colours in this room. Yeah, and it means a lot to me. I really, really love it. I think home to me has always been about a sense of peace. That moment that you walk through the door and you're safe, it's a sanctuary. And part of that for me is also sharing it with other people. The idea that you can open the door and you have curated this place that feels tranquil and welcoming, and it can be a home from home for lots of other people, not just me. That's really what I aim to achieve in every home that I decorate. And you know, it's my dream. For some people, they don't care about their environment. I absolutely understand that. Like, would be a waste of their time and energy to be doing all this stuff that I do. But for people like me to not feel comfortable in your home, it's really deadly from, you know, a mental health perspective, from a feeling of your own success, your own esteem. I need to feel that I've expressed myself in my space to feel at peace.
Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping guides.